Let's bring Aaron David Miller in, senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. He's a former State Department analyst and negotiator. What would you say about these latest developments from Israel and Netanyahu?
Well, where do you want to start? I think the prime minister is doubling down across the board. He's got a budget to pass at the end of March. He's managing a very controversial ultra-Orthodox conscription bill. I think he needs to hang tough with his government. You now have Ben-Gvir rejoining the government, which brings the prime minister's seat count up to 68. And I think in a way, he's borrowing from Trump's liberalism to impose his own version of a liberalism on Israel. That predated Trump's presidency, of course.
Yeah.
Netanyahu's always had an affinity for the Republican Party, but now he's sort of in a kind of mini-me mode with Trump, and I think he's getting energized to a degree, and Trump, in some respects, is protecting him.
So his domestic politics are having an impact on how he can, or maybe have been for some time, on how he conducts the war. Speak more about that, what's actually going on. I think people know the war, they see the headlines day to day, but maybe don't know the ins and outs of Israeli politics as well.
I mean, look, the reality is Benjamin Netanyahu is on trial for bribery, fraud, and trust in a Jerusalem district court, right? 4 years in running. The reality is he has to maintain himself in power this time around with the most right-wing government in Israel's history. If he loses power, he faces the possibility kind of a conviction or a plea deal that would mean the end of his political career, which means most of his decision-making when it comes to national security issues, sadly, tragically, I think is tethered and tied to his politics. And that's causing an enormous amount of upset in the Israeli public. Polls continue to show the majority of Israelis want to see the back of him. But again, you know, you got the Knesset arithmetic, 60 plus 1, you can govern for quite some time.
Well, we have the situation with the hostages. The other night, it was, I mean, it's so sad, this Adon Alexander is the American hostage being held. His dad was on the show. And at first, most of the conversation obviously was about Adon, and then he made some political comments supportive of President Trump, quite frankly. But then when I asked him about Netanyahu and if he had a message or thoughts on Netanyahu, this is what he said about that. Watch.
I have one open question for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. What is the plan to end this war? And what is the plan to get the last hostage out without ending the war and without entering the second phase?
These are people, I mean, you know, obviously going through a lot personally, but again, predisposed, I think, to be supportive in some ways and supportive of President Trump in many ways. But wants to know if Netanyahu has a plan, does he?
No. In fact, part of the plan, I think, is keeping a controlled level of escalation. Because as soon as the war ends, Connell, the realities of Israeli politics are going to drill down on accountability. And the prime minister has avoided, by government decision, appointing a state commission of inquiry. You know, in the wake of the 73 October war, right, in October 73, by April of 74, you already had an interim report from a state committee of inquiry, didn't even identify Golda Meir as accountable, but she resigned under public pressure. You now have the greatest intelligence failure in the history of the state of Israel, October 7th. The single bloodiest days for Jews since the end of the Nazi Holocaust. And essentially, you have a prime minister who, because he is the most willful and determined and skillful politician in contemporary Israeli politics, he's escaped accountability, and I suspect that's going to continue for quite some time.
Interesting. Yeah, and he's still there, still ruling. And, you know, these people like that man understandably want to know what the plan is. All right, Aaron, thank you as always. Aaron David Miller with us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.